Presidency of Bill Clinton, 1993 to 2001. The presidency of Bill Clinton marked one of the most transformative periods in modern American history, characterized by strong economic growth, major technological innovation, expanding globalization, and significant political controversies. In the presidential election of 1992, Clinton, the Democratic governor of Arkansas, defeated incumbent President George H.W. Bush. He became the 42nd President of the United States and assumed office on January 20, 1993. Clinton presented himself as a New Democrat, advocating moderate policies that combined economic growth with social reform. His presidency focused on strengthening the economy, reducing the federal deficit, improving education, expanding trade, and adapting the American economy to the emerging global and digital age. One of the most significant features of the Clinton administration was the remarkable economic expansion of the 1990s. The United States experienced one of the longest periods of economic growth in its history. Unemployment rates declined, inflation remained relatively low, and millions of new jobs were created. The rapid expansion of technology industries, particularly in areas such as software development, personal computing, and internet services, played a major role in this economic success. American businesses increasingly adopted digital technologies, which boosted productivity and efficiency. Cities such as Silicon Valley in California became global centers of technological innovation. The growth of companies such as Microsoft, Amazon, and Google symbolized the rise of the digital economy. These corporations not only transformed the American marketplace but also reshaped global commerce, communication, and information exchange. The rapid spread of the Internet during the 1990s created new opportunities for business, education, and entertainment, marking the beginning of the modern information age. Another major achievement of Clinton's presidency was the promotion of international trade and economic globalization. In 1994, the United States implemented the North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA, a landmark trade agreement signed between the United States, Canada, and Mexico. NAFTA eliminated many trade barriers and tariffs among the three countries, creating one of the largest free trade zones in the world. The agreement aimed to increase economic cooperation, promote investment, and encourage economic growth across North America. Supporters argued that NAFTA expanded export opportunities for American companies and strengthened economic ties among neighboring nations. However, critics believed that the agreement led to the loss of some manufacturing jobs in the United States as companies moved production to Mexico where labor costs were lower. Despite the controversy, NAFTA remained one of the most important economic policies of the Clinton era and significantly influenced global trade patterns. During Clinton's presidency, the federal government also made significant progress in reducing the national deficit and eventually achieving a budget surplus. At the beginning of the 1990s, the United States faced a large federal deficit due to increased government spending and reduced revenues. Clinton worked with Congress to implement fiscal reforms, including tax increases for higher-income earners and spending controls. These measures, combined with strong economic growth, significantly improved the nation's financial position. By the late 1990s, the United States achieved a federal budget surplus for the first time in decades. This fiscal success was widely viewed as a major accomplishment of the Clinton administration. The surplus allowed the government to reduce national debt and invest in social programs, infrastructure, and education initiatives. The Clinton administration also pursued various domestic reforms aimed at improving social welfare and government efficiency. In 1996, Clinton signed the welfare reform legislation known as the Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunity Reconciliation Act, which restructured the American welfare system. The law aimed to encourage employment and reduce long-term dependency on government assistance. It placed time limits on welfare benefits and promoted work requirements for recipients. While supporters argued that the reform helped many people transition into employment, critics claimed that it reduced support for vulnerable populations. Nevertheless, the reform represented a significant shift in American social policy during the 1990s. Clinton's presidency also emphasized education, crime reduction, and healthcare reform. Although his early efforts to introduce a comprehensive national healthcare plan failed in Congress, the administration expanded children's healthcare coverage through the State Children's Health Insurance Program, SCHIP. Crime rates also declined during the 1990s, partly due to economic improvements and new law enforcement strategies introduced under federal programs. Clinton signed the Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act in 1994, which provided funding for additional police officers and community policing initiatives across the country. Despite the administration's economic achievements, Clinton's presidency was overshadowed by political controversy and scandal during its later years. In 1998, Clinton became involved in a major political crisis known as the Clinton-Lewinsky scandal. The controversy arose from Clinton's relationship with White House intern Monica Lewinsky. During a legal investigation, Clinton initially denied the relationship under oath. Later evidence revealed that his statements were misleading, which led to accusations that he had committed perjury and obstructed justice. As a result, the Republican-controlled House of Representatives voted to impeach Clinton in December 1998. Impeachment is a formal process in which a president is charged with serious misconduct by Congress. However, removal from office requires conviction by the Senate. In early 1999, the Senate conducted a trial to determine whether Clinton should be removed from the presidency. After reviewing the evidence and arguments from both sides, the Senate failed to reach the two-thirds majority required for conviction. Consequently, Clinton was acquitted and remained in office until the end of his second term. Although the impeachment crisis created intense political divisions in the United States, Clinton's public approval ratings remained relatively high, largely due to the continued strength of the American economy. Clinton's presidency also played an important role in international diplomacy and global security during the post-Cold War era. The United States participated in peacekeeping efforts in the Balkans, particularly in the conflicts involving Bosnia and Herzegovina and Kosovo during the 1990s. The Clinton administration supported NATO military interventions aimed at stopping ethnic violence and stabilizing the region. These actions demonstrated the continuing global leadership role of the United States after the end of the Cold War. By the time Clinton left office in January 2001, the United States was experiencing strong economic performance, rapid technological progress, and expanding international trade relationships. The nation had achieved budget surpluses, low unemployment, and growing global influence. However, the political polarization that intensified during the impeachment process continued to shape American politics in the following decades. The presidency of George W. Bush marked one of the most dramatic and transformative periods in modern American history. Bush became the 43rd President of the United States after winning the highly controversial 2000 presidential election against Al Gore. The election was extremely close, particularly in the state of Florida, where disputes over vote counting led to legal challenges and recounts. Eventually, the United States Supreme Court decided the case in Bush versus Gore, effectively awarding the presidency to Bush. This decision ended the recount process and made Bush the winner, although the election remained controversial and debated for many years. Bush entered office in January 2001 with a focus on domestic issues such as education reform and tax reductions. However, the course of his presidency changed dramatically after the tragic events of September 11, 2001. On that day, terrorists from the extremist organization Al-Qaeda carried out coordinated attacks against the United States. 4 commercial airplanes were hijacked by terrorists. 2 of them crashed into the World Trade Center towers in New York City, causing both buildings to collapse. Another plane struck the Pentagon near Washington, D.C., while the 4th plane crashed in Pennsylvania after passengers attempted to stop the hijackers. These attacks, known as the September 11th attacks, killed nearly 3,000 people and shocked the entire world. It was the deadliest terrorist attack in American history and fundamentally changed U.S. foreign and domestic policy. In response to the attacks, President Bush launched what became known as the War on Terror. The first major military action occurred in late 2001 when the United States and its allies invaded Afghanistan. At the time, Afghanistan was ruled by the extremist Taliban regime, which had provided shelter to al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden. The objective of the invasion was to destroy terrorist training camps, remove the Taliban government, and prevent Afghanistan from being used as a base for international terrorism. This conflict became known as the War in Afghanistan, and it marked the beginning of the longest war in U.S. history. Although the Taliban regime was quickly removed from power, the conflict continued for many years as American and Allied forces attempted to stabilize the country and fight insurgent groups. Another major event during the Bush presidency was the Iraq War, which began in 2003. The United States accused the government of Saddam Hussein of developing weapons of mass destruction and supporting terrorism. Based on these concerns, the United States, along with several Allied countries, launched a military invasion of Iraq. The Iraqi government collapsed quickly, and Saddam Hussein was eventually captured by U.S. forces in 2003 and later executed by the Iraqi government. However, the war led to years of instability, sectarian violence, and insurgency within Iraq. The absence of confirmed weapons of mass destruction also generated controversy and criticism of the Bush administration's decision to go to war. Following the terrorist attacks of 2001, the United States also reorganized its domestic security system to better protect the country from future threats. In 2002, the government created the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, a large federal department responsible for coordinating national efforts to prevent terrorism, protect borders, and respond to emergencies. This new department combines several existing agencies, including border protection, immigration services, and disaster management, into a unified structure designed to improve national security. Another major challenge during the Bush presidency occurred toward the end of his second term with the global financial crisis of 2008. This crisis began in the United States housing market, where risky mortgage lending and financial speculation led to the collapse of major financial institutions. Banks, investment firms, and insurance companies faced severe losses, causing panic in global financial markets. Stock markets declined sharply, businesses closed, and millions of people lost their jobs. The crisis quickly spread around the world, triggering a global economic recession. In response, the U.S. government introduced emergency financial rescue programs to stabilize banks and prevent the complete collapse of the financial system. The presidency of George W. Bush was therefore defined by major international conflicts, security challenges, and economic crises. The events of September 11th, the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, the creation of the Department of Homeland Security, and the 2008 financial crisis all had lasting impacts on American policy and global politics. Bush's leadership shaped the early 21st century and influenced how the United States responded to terrorism, security threats, and economic instability.